Okay. Hi, everyone. Welcome to this episode of HSMAI Minnesota Live. This is the second one we've had this month, so exciting. Today, our guest is Tammy Gillis, and we'll get started with her shortly. But first, I want to talk a little bit about the Minnesota chapter. We have a lot of new members or non-members on this call, so I just wanted to reach out and say, keep following us on Facebook and LinkedIn and hsmaiminnesota.com to see our upcoming events. We just started in-person events last month. It was really exciting to get that going again, and we have a few on the books for later this summer. And then, of course, this fall, we'll be having our normal events, especially with our mini rock event coming up this fall, which we're really excited to get rolling on. So if you have any interest in hosting an event, volunteering with us and helping out, we'd appreciate it if you contact us, and we can definitely use the help to keep this rolling and keep our mission of supplying networking opportunities and education opportunities for our Minnesota hotels. But today, our topic is sales with Tammy Gillis. Tammy, we invited to attend one of our live events in March of 2019, which got moved and then canceled. And now, so we're really glad to have Tammy back with her, even if it is virtual, and hopefully in person sometime in the next time we're able to connect. So Tammy Gillis is a recognized leader in the hospitality industry in sales and sales leadership. She's the founder and CEO of Gillis Sales, and she has a sales career of 28 years, background in Hilton, BlackBerry, and she has a current team of 35 sales professionals supporting over 200 hotels across North America. And so she has come with us to share insights about reimaging sales and getting ready for the recovery that's currently happening right now. So, Tammy, I'll turn it over to you and you can start. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Stephen. And I know it's a bit delayed, it's a year later, and who thought we would still be here doing Zoom meetings 14 months later, but it certainly is a pleasure. And I love that your chapter is thinking about sales and looking for ways to get ahead of this recovery. I'm going to share my screen and hoping that you guys can see this. So the topic for today is reimagining sales and getting ready for the recovery, sales 1 year later. I had a chat with my friend Bob Anderson, who I know did an in-person session last month. He's one of my favorite people. And we had a chat, and I'm very familiar with the content he delivered. And it really complements the message that I'm delivering today. Bob and his team, they do a fantastic job on kind of the science and the cadence of prospecting and cold calling, which I think is so important right now. And I'm going to be talking a lot about the art of selling, and that's why it's such a great compliment. I want to thank all of you for submitting your survey results, and really thank you for your time, because a few things stood out. I want to share with you a few things that stood out that really helped me decide what to cover today. One is that you're wearing many hats, and although you're in a sales role, you're behind the front desk, you're in operations, and you're having a hard time being proactive and getting ahead from a sales perspective. And also just, and we're hearing this everywhere across North America, trying to get a hold of the decision maker. How do I get emails responded to? How do I get people to return my phone calls? I want to tell you, you're not alone. It is a grind. It is selling in this environment right now is a grind. And the purpose for our call today, I want to give you a little bit more confidence and some best practices to get out there, because business is returning, meetings are coming back, and we want to make sure that you are first out of the gate to capture that business. So thank you for your time. Thank you for your responses, and feel free to post some questions in the chat. We'll definitely leave some time at the end. So here's what's really important. We have to know where we came from. Before I jump in and share some best practices and tactics, we have to understand the state of sales pre-COVID. And I say this respectfully as a 28-year sales professional. that we were a bit transactional. And so it's really important to understand the place that we came from. Our industry was enjoying a 10-year cycle of RevPAR growth. And it wasn't too difficult to search for business, right? Not to say there wasn't competition, but sales tactics were reactive and transactional because we had lots of inquiries coming from multiple market segments. So a lot of those sales teams on property, and I'd say even at a regional level, we were more lead catching versus hunting. Not to say that some of you weren't hunting. It was a muscle that you didn't have to exercise, right? And so what's happening now is we've got a lot of practice being lead catchers, and we have to re-engage that hunting mentality because the inquiries aren't coming in. Some markets, maybe more than others, but that mindset and your ability to switch from a farmer to a hunter is going to be critical to your success. We also, although the economy was really great, we had this proliferation of brands and oversupply of hotels, specifically in the select service category. And for those of you that are in secondary markets, tertiary markets, you saw this. So, you know, multiple select service properties popping up. And then eventually, what happens in March of last year, COVID hit and travel came to a grinding halt. So we were already seeing some cracks in the foundation as it relates to our philosophy and our sales approach. It was reactive, it was transactional. We were all making hay. We were making hay, and we thought that, you know, the good times were going to last, and they didn't. So the current state of sales, again, we support over 200 hotels with their sales efforts, and we're also a sales training organization. And what we are seeing and what you've shared with us is what we're seeing all over North America. Hotels have struggled to find additional revenue sources. So if you were a big box property seller going after groups, a lot of you reference groups in your assessment, conventions, entertainment, sports. What happens when those leads aren't coming in and they dry up? How do you pivot? Many hotels did not ever have to go after the workforce segment. They never had to deal with a CLC or a transportation or trucking company. They've never had to prospect an essential services company. So we had a real shakeup happen for the sales folks that weren't repurposed to operations. Where do I look for these additional revenue sources? So staff were furloughed. So some of you, if you're just coming back, welcome back. And let's make sure that you're ready to get out there and hustle to move market share. And there's not a lot of proactive time. That came through loud and clear. There's not a lot of proactive time spent on hunting for new business. You've probably seen this in your markets, that all segments are competing. So you've got select service hotels competing with full service hotels because they've had to shrink their inventory with base business not being there. These full service Marriotts are competing with select service Marriotts, for example. That's tough. And all hotels are trying to avoid a race to the bottom. We've seen rates drop online, apparently and statistically not as low as they were back in 2008. I think a lot of markets did a good job at holding their rate. But I bet a lot of you have seen this. There's times that our online rates have been lower than what our corporate accounts are getting. And that's been problematic. We've been running into some issues. So hotels are desperately trying to build base and trying to avoid a race to the bottom. And many sales teams aren't equipped because you've got this split focus of operations. We are still very much, our mindset is in crisis mode. We need to be able to shift and think of recovery and get back in the driver's seat. That is one of the biggest messages I can give you today is we are no longer passengers. The recovery is on its way. We are seeing signs of recovery, and the hotels and the salespeople who jump back in that driver's seat, the first team on the field is a team that's going to win. And that's a clear message that we can no longer be waiting for the phone to ring. So here's that modern buyer. Here we have been in crisis for 14 months, and you've got this pent up demand for travel. You see it coming back with leisure. families who have been in, I'm in Canada, outside of Toronto. We're still very much in a lockdown. I dream about taking my next vacation. And unfortunately, that energy is not necessarily being met at the hotel. We're still in that crisis mode. We're understaffed. We're wearing multiple hats. So what's really important to know when you pick up the phone from a selling perspective, or you're selling to that modern buyer, we have to make sure we're not sounding transactional and that we move beyond selling rates, dates, and space, because you will be the easiest salesperson to shut down. So let's talk about the evolution of the modern buyer. If you were to describe it in a nutshell, they're digitally driven, they're mobile empowered, they're socially connected to information and people. And think about in their personal lives, right? Think Amazon. They want personalization, they want transparency, and they want immediate fulfillment. That is just from a B2C perspective. That's kind of what that modern buyer is bringing into their day-to-day interactions, even if they're dealing with a hotel salesperson. But what happens when they meet a hotel salesperson? Now, some of you might be too young to know this show, Little House on the Prairie, and I'm poking fun at this. I'm a salesperson. Meanwhile, back on the farm, we are still selling like it's 1980, and we're selling rates, dates, and space. Buyers are changing faster than sellers. This was a massive gap prior to the pandemic. And as we look ahead at recovery, if we don't meet them where they're at in the sales process, that's going to slow down your specific hotel's ability to ramp up. There is a fantastic study from a group called CSO, and every couple of years they release basically a state of the nation from a buyer's perspective, how salespeople are doing. And the last one was published in 2018. It was not flattering at all. And we think we're doing a much better job than the buyers see us and how we're showing up. The mindset of sellers is primarily focused on selling their product. In this day and age, buyers are saying there's still a lack of research and understanding of their needs on our behalf, and there's a failure to create relevancy. So we end up having sales conversations instead of business conversations. So what do you think the difference is? I'm going to, I'm asking you a rhetorical question. I want you to reflect on this. What do you think the difference is between a sales conversation and a business conversation? Sales conversations are all about us, enough about me, more about my 200 rooms and my meeting space. Business conversations are about the customer. Business conversations are about what my product or service enables that buyer to do. If you can figure out what your service enables your customers to do, whether it's a general contractor, a meeting planner, a procurement manager, that is gold. That's how you avoid a race to the bottom. That's how you're able to lead from a place that is truly consultative selling and not just feature dumping. So sales organizations are not evolving fast enough, and there are implications to that. We're not adding any more value than somebody jumping on Expedia or brand.com and getting those rates, dates, and space. So I'm going to segue into some market segments to target. Again, this is across North America based on where your hotel is at in the state. You'll know based on those demand generators what resonates and what makes sense. But here's what we've been seeing as we are following the breadcrumbs as to who's to target. No surprise, that workforce segment has kept the lights on for most of our hotels this past year. And never in my 28 years have I thought a full service Hilton or Marriott would want to be in the CLC program for $75. But here we are, right? That's going to change. But the implication is some of those mid-market select service properties that enjoyed that workforce segment, that blue collar, gray collar segment, was now competing with hotels in a higher segment. So that had some implications. So third-party lodging companies, CLC, they are the Walmart of corporate lodging. In 2019, they booked 24 million room nights. They're, arguably one of the biggest accounts. It's a love-hate relationship similar to the OTAs, and I say that respectfully because it can feel like a race to the bottom, but it's provided a lot of room nights in some key markets. So parking lot checks, you might be saying, Tammy, it's not 1980, but if you want to follow the breadcrumbs, parking lot checks are phenomenal. And I hope you're making time, although we don't have a lot of it. Let's make sure you're spending time in the right place and checking your competitors' parking lots, not at 9 in the morning, not at 5 o'clock. The hotels we work with, given just their lean staffing levels, they've been asking, and it works well if you can do it, their night audit. Whomever's coming in on night audit, driving in at 10:30 at night, ask to drive by, take pictures, because that's when those workforce trucks and those vehicles are in the parking lot. Bid clerk. So for those of you that have bid clerk, we have an enterprise version of that, our company. And so we've had great success. I'm going to share with you in a moment the success rate with some leads that we go after. But bid clerk, it's construction projects. And again, that is phenomenal base business for all segments, provided the rate aligns. And so leisure, not sure how all your hotels did Memorial Day weekend, but weekends in a lot of markets, that is the success story. That is leading the recovery. The challenge is hotels are struggling to staff and clean those rooms and staff the front desk, and it's causing a lot of stress on the system. So imagine the challenges when that Sunday to Thursday business starts coming back. So my message, although this isn't a digital marketing session, really make sure whomever on your team is responsible, refresh your descriptions, make sure your photos are up to date, and focus on your reviews across all channels, because that is, that was a big deal before COVID, but people will continue to jump online, look at your reviews, and make sure that you're doing a good job over COVID to keep them safe. And again, is that something, as I'm sharing these best practices, how can you internally build a sales culture to divide and conquer? This session isn't about adding 27 more things on your to-do list. That's something Night Audit can do. If they're, give them some things to do as well and say, I want you to do an audit on these websites, check our description, do we have the most current pictures, go check these sites for our reviews and come back with a report, or better yet, here are the new pictures, help us update. This is about internally building an army of sellers to help you get out ahead of this recovery. Corporate travel, we're seeing some signs of life. Those of you with Agency 360, the next 13 weeks report is showing you the signs of life. That is showing you who's traveling. Yes, you can go back and do a running 12 months. You can go back and see who was traveling before the pandemic. But if you want to look forward thinking to say, who were the companies that are starting to travel again? That report is critical. The next two pieces, if this is the only thing you have time for, I can't stress it enough. Of course, general managers and owners, they want new business. Go out, steal from the competition. That's absolutely the name of the game. But it can never be at the expense of not taking care of your existing customers, because everything right now is fair game. So if you were to run a report year to date, right? Year to date or even Q1, who were your top producing accounts? Who were your top producing accounts over COVID? Who were your top producing accounts before COVID? And do you have a strategy to re-engage those that aren't traveling, just to connect and say, how have you been doing? How have you been impacted by this pandemic? Are you back in the office yet? Are you still working from home? Tell me how this has impacted your travel program and what your travelers are going to care about when they get back on the road again. We have to be out there having as many conversations as possible. Do not make it easy for your competition to sweep in and take what you and your team have worked so hard for. Protect your base business, and then have fun and hunt for business and go after the business that's staying at the comp set. We're all following the breadcrumbs. And if there's one word to describe the sales mentality, we have to be scrappy. We have to have grit and we have to have resiliency because it is a grind. I'm thankful that when I started with Hilton back in 1993, we were in the middle of a massive recession, and I was tasked with the corporate market in Toronto. We were literally handing out $79 flyers. I'm really dating myself, and it worked. But I'm so grateful that I never had the benefit of sitting and waiting for the phone to ring. I had to learn that grit and that hustle early. But that is the fire in your belly that you're going to need. But it's also fun, and you can celebrate with your team when you see how it comes to life and bears fruit. We're starting to see meetings return. I saw Noland report this morning. So Noland, fantastic data. Some of you probably get this data. Week over week, there was a huge jump, I want to say 50% in meetings. And guess what segment is leading the way? Corporate meetings are leading the way. Reach out to those companies perhaps that paused or canceled, or reach out to those companies that you know are staying at the comp set. Again, everything is fair game. Small meetings are coming back. We know sports, we know social, and with the continued success and rate of vaccinations, there's going to be a lot more confidence coming in the fall around companies and corporations traveling. So this is kind of how you play that short to medium term game. The big global corporate accounts, if you're part of a brand, make sure that you've got a strategy in place to do those business cases, to do those RFPs, but that's definitely a longer game. So in the interest of time, you need to balance what is going to move the needle in the next 30, 60, 90 days. And then what is my runway? What's my medium to long-term sales strategy? So these are some market segments in a nutshell. And then I want to share with you, because we provide sales support for a number of hotels, we use Salesforce as our CRM, and we score our leads. We want to fish where the fish are. We've had phenomenal results during the pandemic. When I say phenomenal in a pandemic, certainly not 2019 numbers, but we're finding business. And here's where it lands for us. This is not glamorous. This is the scrappy stuff I'm talking about. When we qualify, we jump in our client systems. When we're qualifying leads from arrivals reports, we have a 68% close won rate. Parking lot leads, 66. Agency 360, 59. Bid clerk, 54. Your market might look different, and I'm not saying ignore everything else, but based on where you're seeing the value, that's where you need to spend more time because resources are limited. Interesting enough, the two channels where we see the lowest conversion rate, and it's not to say you can ignore them because we can't ignore any channel right now, it's Cvent and Hotel Planner. So just to look at, they're in the 20s, they're in the mid 20s in terms of conversion rate. So just take a look, maybe you can have auto offers set up in Hotel Planner, make sure you're not casting your net too wide, and fish where the fish are. I'll leave you with that on this slide. And I'm going to make sure as well that you have access to this. I'll be sending it along to the team. So where are we at? We've got 30 minutes left. I've talked about mindset, the modern buyer, where we should be looking for business and the breadcrumbs we should be following. Now it's time for preparation. We're not ready to pick up the phone and make those calls. And so I'm going to spend the rest of our time together getting you ready to send those sales emails, getting you ready to have those business conversations, because it's very easy to pick up the phone and go on autopilot and then, crash and burn and not get the result you're looking for. So before we do this, I want to share with you some latest data from HubSpot. This came out over COVID, and it's not to scare the heck out of you so that you never pick up the phone again and make a cold call, but it's taking 18 dials to connect to a single buyer. Here's the thing, we need to show up and bring our A game every time we call. We can't say, I can only be good 1 in 18 times. We have to act and show up and be prepared like that buyer is going to pick up the phone every single time. Callback rates are less than 1%. Nothing annoys me more when I get a call from a seller and you've all been solicited by salespeople, and they put the onus on me to do the work to call them back. So voicemail messages are good. My recommendation is the call to action could sound like this. So Susie Smith, the reason for I'm calling is da 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 da. In the event that email is your preferred communication channel, I'm going to follow up with my contact information so we can connect via email. So you have a layered approach. It's not just, well, sorry, I left a message 3 weeks ago and they're not calling me back. That's where you're digging deep, and you're then maybe following up via email. Sales emails, 20% of them, less than 20% of them are opened. So I can tell you in any given day, I probably get 20 to 30 sales emails. I'm sure all of you do. What's the first thing you do? You're looking on your phone, and I will look on my phone and I swipes. I'm deleting the sales emails. Don't make them sound like a sales email. And I'm going to show you a couple of examples of that. Sellers are 4 times more likely to get a response with a personal connection. That's why I love LinkedIn. You know, as a sales performance company, we are still making outbound calls, right? We're trying to get business, reach out to clients who value what we have. I try to warm up every single phone call. If you can take a cold call and turn it into a warm call because you've jumped on LinkedIn and someone close in your network can introduce you to Susie Smith, that's an amazing way to get your foot in the door. But it takes time and it takes research, but it will shorten the sales cycle instead of you just smiling and dialing. And no surprise, 50% of buyers choose the vendor that responds first. We're hearing a lot from customers. They're calling hotels and they can't get a hold of people. Now, we're together for an hour, so I hope no one's trying to call you right now, but I know you'll get back to them right away. This is more so for hotels who don't have salespeople on staff. So I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir here, but it's a serious problem. When we're making calls to buyers, we've had a really warm reception. They've been grateful. When we're contacting a general contractor on behalf of one of our hotels or a corporate client, they're saying, thank you for calling. I've been trying to book space at this, and I've called a few hotels and I can't get anyone to call me back. That could be your differentiator. Being prepared, showing up, calling. You can stand out just by showing up because it's a crazy time right now and buyers don't know what hotels to call and who's still there, quite frankly. This is something that was mentioned multiple times in the survey, finding the right decision maker. So just like our clients are having a hard time saying who's still at the hotel, who's still employed, we have the same challenge. Who still works in these organizations? What meeting planners are working from home? Are they back in the office? Is this travel manager still there? Is this administrative assistant still there? So when I say it's a grind, that's why it's a grind. And a big part of your prospecting could be just figuring out who is still there. So I want to provide you with some best practices. Start with the company. This is probably common sense, whether or not it's common practice, you be the judge. I love jumping on the company, pulling up the company in LinkedIn, and then click on people, because everybody in that company who's associated will pop up, and you can start looking for titles and then jumping on and seeing who's there and who's not there. Of course, their website. Do they have an org chart? Is their executive team listed? These are basic kind of research 101, but now is a time, but because we were in such a transactional mode, we have to revisit the fundamentals that worked and that got us success. Be curious. I always say the reason I love sales and I lasted in this career as long as I have is because maybe not that I'm the best salesperson on the planet. I'm probably one of the most curious people. And that has lent itself to help me in my success, because the more research you do, the more questions you ask, the more you find answers, the more you're then able to find solutions. Good salespeople are curious salespeople. And we've been in such crisis mode. We have to exercise that creativity and curiosity again to get out there and figure out why people are traveling and why they should talk to us. So the digger we deep, the digger we can dig into why they're traveling, the more we can connect those dots. If we're just calling and saying, hey, I'm just calling to see if you have any travel, instead of, I see you're hiring 200 people, how is that impacting your training program? Are you bringing people in? Will people from head office be coming in? How does that impact your hotel program that you're putting together for 2022? How can we help? So the more you can dig, the more you can have those business conversations. Now, this last point is kind of, the irony is not lost on me that ask reception, not sure if reception's there. I don't know what you guys are experiencing. I know our team, it's hit or miss because companies are working from home. But whenever they do pick up the phone, that gatekeeper is critical. And being able to have a conversation to figure out, is Susie Smith still there? And if not, who would be the best person who would benefit from understanding how we could partner together for their hotel program? So sales is the biggest jigsaw puzzle you'll ever put together, but the more questions you ask, you're looking for those pieces, the more information you're going to have. This is a little snapshot that might be helpful, and it really depends on the company size. So who do you go after? Well, if you're dealing with a smaller company, it's usually the CEO or C-level executive. If it's 10 to 50 employees, it's at the VP level. The more employees, you're looking for specialized roles. Is it a travel manager? Is it sales? Is it HR? Is it procurement? And you might have 7 or 8 contacts within one company. I always say to our team, if I'm looking at a Salesforce and I'm saying, okay, we're going after this company, and you left one message for one person, go find the other 5 people, right? The days of just leaving a voicemail message and crossing your fingers, that ain't gonna happen, because the last thing you want is for your competition to get out there and be scrappier and get to those 5 other people. Here's what's missing when you're doing that research. You're jumping on LinkedIn, you're jumping on the website, you're looking at your rivals report, you're looking at production, maybe you've done some shop calls at the comp set, you know where they're staying, you know what rate they're paying. This piece can be your differentiator because you're still not ready to pick up the phone. You need to synthesize your research. Just like a reporter, if you were having to write a research paper, what kind of conclusion would you draw? Ask yourself, what areas of their business have potential travel? What's driving their travel? Okay, they have maintenance shutdowns twice a year. Who are those subcontractors coming in and why? Are they hiring? So what's driving their travel? Why would they benefit from talking to you right now? Because it might be a priority to you, but if it's not a priority to them and you don't identify why it should be, you're going to go to bottom of the list. Who are they currently working with? This is something you can delegate. Let's say the evening shift tonight, 3 to 11, depending how many rooms. Give them a list of clients that you want them to do shop calls to help your sales efforts tomorrow. And don't tell them I told you. I don't want to get hate mail from night audit or the evening shift on the front desk. But let's be clever. I know our staffing levels are lean. If you've got one superstar on the desk from 3 to 11 or whatever time, 3 to 7, say, here are the 5 companies. I want you to do shop calls because I'm putting a business case together and I'm prospecting them tomorrow, and I need to know what we're up against. Do you know what their values, what their travels value in a hotel? Why should they work with you over the competition? If all you're leading with is rate, you are forcing the buyer to make a decision on rate. And I've said this for years. We make it more about rate than the client makes it about rate. If you're not bringing anything else and you don't have any more meat on the bones as to, we're closer to your job site, we have on-site laundry, we have better online reviews, we've got a history working with your company. There's other things you can talk about that have nothing to do with rate, but that's the easiest thing to lead. And then we come back and say we're getting beaten up on rate. And where are you at in the process? The reason this is really critical, it's going to lead into preparing for the call. Every call you make should have an objective, and the objective is based on where you're at in the process. If you're at the beginning where they do not know us at all, they've had a long history at our, competition, then that objective is going to be very different than, this is a client that we used to have, we just haven't seen their travel in the past year and a half, or it's a piece of lost business because we screwed up. So based on where you're at with that client, that dictates your game plan for the call. So synthesizing, slowing down, and actually connecting the dots is such an important part of this process. So now we're going to jump in. We're still not ready to pick up the phone. Every call you make, set an objective. You might say, are you crazy? The objective is to get the business. That is the outcome. That's always the outcome. But remember, it could take 5 to 12 points of interaction to get somebody to buy from you. And depending where you're at with that client or that prospect, that's going to drive the objective. So for example, it could be, I need to talk to reception because I don't even know if my decision maker, Susie Smith, is still employed there. Or it could be, they were a great client last year during COVID. Looking at Q1, I haven't seen them show up in our production report. Did they go anywhere? I need to requalify that account. That is going to drive what's next, which is your opening statement. That opening statement, remember, when they pick up the phone and it's, it takes 18 dials to get a hold of one buyer, trust me, they're not thrilled that the one call they pick up is a salesperson on the other end. I know when I, see a call coming in, I'm thinking it's my son's school or it's a client, and I pick up the phone and sure enough, the salesperson, I am looking for every possible way to get off the phone. So let's not sound like a salesperson. That opening statement needs to be under 30 seconds. And that is not the time to sell. We get so excited, like, you poor bugger, you picked up the phone. You were going to hear about my 200 rooms. You're going to hear about our Wi-Fi and all the same things that our competition has, right? I'm being slightly facetious. We have to have a business conversation. That opening statement needs to wake them up and tell them why you're calling. And you can't do that without the right objective and without synthesizing all that research you did. I will show you a couple of examples. So then we also have to think ahead of time, what are our questions we're going to ask? If we get permission to go past, that opening statement, again, we're not jumping in and selling. What are those strategic questions? So there are 4 key categories of questions that are really, I learned this at Hilton, and when they trained me on it, when they taught this, it was a game changer for me. So when I'm preparing for a call, I've got a call planner, and I'm going to make sure I send that after this call so you can have that call planner as a cheat sheet. I have 4 key categories of questions, and in preparation for any call, I'm building out what are the business needs questions, not your business needs, their business needs. What are the decision-making questions, competition questions? Most salespeople hang out in event logistics land. So it's all about the rate, dates, and space. And we need to elevate our questioning to find out why they're traveling, who are we competing with, what do they care about, and what's our process for making that decision. That can be a game changer. Now, a lot of salespeople, and I've trained thousands over the years, will say, I've been doing this for 20 years. It's all in my head. Well, guess what happens when stuff's in your head? I'll mirror and coach and hear people bomb on that opening statement, and they'll hang up the phone and say, it sounded better in my head. I probably should have put pen to paper and really thought about those questions. So another thing is, we think we're asking more open-ended questions, and we actually are. We tend to lead with a lot of closed-ended questions. And the way to guarantee that, because I think our mind tricks us and we think we're more strategic than we are, but we go to these default questions, write them out and then test them. If you can answer yes or no, it's a if it's a closed-ended question, ask a better question. It's a muscle. And when you start to develop it, you can have a little bit in your head and a little bit on paper. But if you feel that you're rusty because who isn't after this past year, then let's write more and prepare more. And then you will get faster at it and you'll get more efficient. And I promise you, as you break in these new shoes, you will not go back to those old smelly shoes that weren't doing what they needed to do. Preparing for possible objections. There's maybe 3 to 5 objections you're going to hear. I don't have a need. I'm happy with my current supplier. The price is too high. Whatever those objections are, we need to be prepared for those objections. Now, here's some relief. A lot of us freeze up when it comes to objections because we think we have to offer a solution and have a counter offer on the fly. The best way to deal with an objection is to ask a thoughtful question. Your rate's too high. You know what? I can get a better rate at the hotel I'm staying at. Well, tell me, what rate are you expecting? Or, I don't have a need. Well, when do you think you might start traveling again? Instead of, okay, sorry, I'll call you back in 2 months. Ask a really good question to open up the conversation. So in the time that we have left, I want to share with you a couple of prospecting emails. But what I want you to know is these can be tweaked, shortened, and you can also use them for voicemail. Too many of us are hiding behind email. Not saying that buyers don't appreciate it, but we have to mix it up and we have to start picking up the phone and calling. And I'll tell you, Bob probably delivered that same message. He and I are both old school and we're on the same page. Now, again, you can't just leave a message and hope to call back, right? Hope isn't going to fill your sales funnel. You can then follow it up with a great email and have a layered approach and go back and forth. I want to share with you one of my favorite people who is from Minnesota. I hope you know this sales superstar, Jill Conrath, who's retiring this year. She's one of my favorite people. And I had a chance actually to meet her, which was an absolute pleasure. She has a number of books, and she has a great ebook on prospecting via email. And she has done tons of research and says that when prospects are contacted by a salesperson by email, and I'll say by phone, they've got some determining factors and filters in determining whether or not they're going to return it. And again, they're more subconscious. So this is from your buyer's perspective. How simple is the request? Does it bring me value? Is it aligned with my objectives? And is it a priority? So I want you to be hyper vigilant when you're sending an email. Is it hitting most of these markers, at least 3 of those markers? Because if it's just a generic reaching out to see if you have any travel, would love to set up an L&R, you're striking out. Is it simple? Does it bring value? Is it aligned? Is it a priority? I want to show you a couple of examples of what that looks like, and you can practice, and I encourage you to work with your team to do one for every market segment, because the language changes and then their needs are different. Okay, so I'm going to share with you, this is an email to Gary Smith. The most important part of an email is a subject line. You probably all know that, but it's worth repeating, especially if they're looking at their emails on their phone. All they see is your name and your subject line. So if you're introduced, hey, Susie Smith recommended we connect. Oh crap, I can't delete that. Right? Susie Smith's my boss. I better open up this email. So I'll just read this and then we'll go back and see if it hits the markers. Good morning, Gary. My name is Tammy Gillis, calling from the Holiday Inn in St. Paul. Congratulations on being awarded the contract for the wastewater treatment project set to take place next month. The purpose of my email is to see how we can support you on this project and help you manage any hotel requirements you may have. We are less than 2 miles from the site, and we have deep expertise in taking care of maintenance crews who are away from home. So if we go back and just do a sanity check, it's simple, it brings value. We know they have a project starting next month. It's aligned with their objectives, and I would say it's probably priority. It's for them to decide, but at least it's not just this generic open-ended email. Now, these are my words, and you have to make it your words, and you have to make it, comfortable for you to be able to use, but feel free to rob and duplicate this. Here's another one. See the subject line, John Smith recommended we connect. Hi, Susan, it's Tammy Gillis, Director of Sales from the Holiday Inn and Suites. I was speaking with John Smith, VP of Finance, who's a regular guest at our hotel. He mentioned you're looking for a hotel to host your corporate retreat. Would you be available to connect this week and we can further discuss? Again, this is a business conversation. I'm not talking about our amazing meeting space and our food and beverage and our Wi-Fi. This is a business conversation. And that is the level that we need to get to. It's a level, quite frankly, we should have always been at. But when times are good and the phones are ringing and the channels are lighting up, we get away with a lot. Now's the time to bring our best sales forward, to be relevant and ready to hunt for that business and ready to compete. So in summary, we need to go back to the sales fundamentals. Yes, technology is great and we can use all these social media tools, but let's make sure we don't forget the fundamentals. It's time to jump back in to the driver's seat. What you are selling is not what the customer is buying. We have to stop selling rooms and Wi-Fi. The battleground is going to be for local backyard sales. Try to protect your time, make sales a priority. And how can you develop a sales culture? How can you use the front desk? How can you train the front desk to help them be part of that? Watch your bar rates to ensure they're not lower than your corporate discounts. That's getting some hotels into a whole lot of trouble. And re-look at your comp set, because maybe who you were competing with before COVID, there's probably some additional hotels that you might not want to overlook to make sure who you're going to be competing with in this new era. And my final thought, everyone's in sales, or at least they should be. So I wish you all the best. I know this is not for the faint at heart. We've never been here before, but we can do it the right way. And it's going to absolutely shorten the sales cycle and give you the results and the satisfaction that you're doing a great job. And we're giving away copies of my book that is hitting Amazon in the next 4 weeks. It's going to be out for pre-sale. We're giving away, I'll turn it back to Stephen and to Kaylin, who will be doing the draw. But Room to Grow, Not Leaving Sales to Chance will be on Amazon in the next 4 weeks. It was a labor of love this past year that I wrote to help re-energize and to help retool our industry to get out of the recovery, out of the pandemic and into the recovery faster. So Stephen, Kaylin, thank you for this opportunity, and I hope to see you in person sometime soon.
Thank you, Tammy.
Thank you, Tammy. Does anyone have any questions for Tammy before we go to the drawing? I think I see a message in here. Oh, no, that's not a question. Okay.
You can type them in the chat, or you can definitely chime in with your question if you like. Tammy, we're very excited about your book. Congratulations on that accomplishment.
Thank you. It was fun.
I bet.
Tammy, I really like how you made it a point to talk about rates not being the only thing that is selling and what you can differentiate yourself with the hotel. It's one of those things we've been talking about. We talked about it with Bob a little bit and with some other webinars that we're looking at reinventing ourselves and what more can we do besides have a good price. In some cases, we don't know what price is, and we don't know if price matters to the guest that much, especially with corporate travel. You know, it's one of the things that I've been trying to consider myself when I'm working is how much does this rate really matter, or what else is the person looking for? So thank you for giving some more insights on what else they're looking for besides a rate.
Yeah, they really want us to understand them.
Mm-hmm.
They want us to, to demonstrate our care, that we have absolutely taken the time and that we understand their business and that we're going to take the best possible care of them. That all day long resonates, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, exactly. I'm trying, I think I cannot get my chat to pull up here.
I can read Rachel McDonald here using my boss's computer to jump on. I was covering the front desk. Oh my gosh, that's the life right now, right? Congrats on your book, by the way. Thank you, Rachel. Qualify those guests at check-in while you're on the front desk. I know you are, but that I miss hopping behind the front desk and doing that because that is with so many reservations being booked online and through OTA right now, that is where the money is. So great, good luck.
Okay, thank you. I will switch over and share my screen to show the book winners if there are no other questions. So the book winners were taken out of the registrations and the attendees here online, so you could attend without registering. So we have 3 book winners that, if I can share, that we will announce here. I think 2 of them are still online. One may have dropped off. Share screen, this one. Okay. And our winners are, if I can get it to advance, right here on the screen. So pronunciation.
Oh, fantastic. I know the first 2. And Thomas, I look forward to sending you a copy of the book, Fatima Searle. Awesome. If you could, do you mind just sending me those with the email addresses, and I'll make sure I'll reach out to get their addresses.
Exactly. Yep, we have their email addresses and I will send them over to you.
Amazing. 2
Okay.
Canadians are on that list. That's pretty cool.
So congratulations to the winners of the book. And as always, as we wrap this up, please be sure to connect with us on Facebook and LinkedIn and our website. We'll have this video posted on our website, which is also our YouTube page, or a link to our YouTube page. If you have any questions for us, there's our email on the screen, and we can reach out if you want to volunteer. Please don't hesitate to reach out. So thanks, everyone, and we'll see you on the next episode of Live.
Thank you
Have a
so
great
much,
day.
guys. Have a great one. Bye-bye.
Bye.